Hello, I'm AbbyX Toycat, and Merry Christmas, everybody! If your idea of a Christmas video is not this, I totally understand, you can come back to it later, but to me, I've always liked the idea of doing a kind of like deep talk, because honestly, Christmas is the time, which is very pleasant and everything, but it's all about putting on your facade and being nice to everyone, cheerings for everyone, but I also sometimes think that that's where I most want to have these deep, serious discussions, and that's exactly what I love when I'm on the sofa, which is to me, what Christmas kind of represents. But let's get started, shall we? By starting with these present chests. This is something that's only available on Christmas Eve and day, and I actually had to fake that in there because it's only for the Java version, but it's something that honestly is really cool and that some people look forward to all year just as much as they look forward to Christmas. And it's weird because it's only something that's exciting because it is time limited. If this was something that was far less time limited, like it was a whole 3 months in the year, I think people would learn to hate it. But I think anything, even things that are objectively not that fun, become fun when they're time limited. And where better an example to point to than Christmas itself? I have always loved Christmas, but I recently realized I feel like sometimes I'm struggling with a lot of the parts of being an adult. I feel like there's loads of things that people clearly picked up way earlier in their lives that I'm still working out as I'm in my 30s. And one of the stupid ones is I got a gift from a family friend recently, and I forgot to realize they gifted me something. I thought that that's the end of the interaction. Isn't it nice? And I can eat my biscuits on the sofa. But actually, I was meant to send them a thank you. So I sent them a hurried thank you today, thank you, all the other nice pleasantries, and hopefully they appreciated it. But it was it was one of those things that made me realize oh yeah, that's one of the things that makes Christmas special. It's the one time of year where you don't have to worry about when you're gifting someone, how are they going to send me a thank you, or do I have to send them a thank you? Because everyone thanks each other by getting themselves the relevant gifts. And although we could talk about how that's changed and how most people find the idea of getting lots of people gifts exhausting, so now you get secret Santas and bad Santas, I do think there's something to be said though about I have always had this family Christmas that I so much so that last year when I didn't spend it slowly started to fall apart over the course of my adult life, and I sometimes wonder, is that one of the things I'm meant to be doing? But, better with, am I meant to be putting this together? If you see something fall apart in front of you, is that your responsibility to fix? The answer in most cases is yes. But in certain places, again, when there's clear hierarchies involved, if I see a mess on the ground at a tube station, maybe it's not, or I see a phone on the tracks at a tube station, that's certainly not my job, even though I could be helpful jumping down there and helping someone else, right? There's times where you want to be helpful, but you're not sure if you're meant to be helpful. And I feel like life is filled with moments like that. But I've always had these family Christmases, and one of the things that I've always found interesting about them is I long for these all year long. And so one year it didn't happen. I think it was actually last year. And so for Christmas Day, what I decided to do is I didn't have any other plans elsewhere, and lots of people I knew were out the country. So I was like, one of the things that I think it's shockingly common is going to the pub. And at the time, it felt a bit sad of yep, I'm just gonna go drink a little, gin, watch some, look at some boats go by or whatever. At the time, I was like, this isn't as good as I would like the big Christmas to be. But looking back, despite it being maybe a mixed bag of emotions at the time, I look back on it now, and just like the Christmas chests, just like time-limited capes, it was the exact same thing where now I actually look back with a bit of envy, oh yeah, that was a cool thing that I did, that I got to experience that one year, because I think I am, one of the ways I've always appreciated that I am blessed, I think my set of circumstances in life was, I always think about it as being non-ideal in terms of how I was born, but I always have been incredibly blessed that I have multiple aunts and uncles that I've been on good terms with. Having a family that is not just your immediate parents is shockingly uncommon. Or shocking. I think the family society structure has basically fallen apart over the last, how much you want to call it. And whether that's good or bad is a whole different point for sure, right? But I think that, there's something about having this unique experience where sometimes you can feel really bad about it in the moment without realizing that for some people that's something to aspire to, to have, even though I feel super stressed about oh, what am I meant to bring? Am I meant to be putting more effort into this? Even though I have all these negative thoughts at the time, I have this thing that actually I'm so stressed up here about how to navigate the top of the mountain that I forget that I'm at the top of some really cool hill and lots of people are looking up going, wow, isn't it awesome that he's like up there? I'm thinking about how nice it'd be back to be back down at the bottom, to have the drinks alone at the pub or whatever else. But there, at the same time, there are people who are like, yeah, actually, I would give anything to be able to get my family together, because I recently reconnected with my father's side of the family. I didn't know my dad at all growing up. He barely knew my brother, and I was just so young that I didn't even know that I had a dad, as dumb as that seems. Like, like I remember being like 7 and someone telling me like, oh yeah, your dad, he's like in a different country right now, but you do have what like I remember it being like a revelation to me, which is stupid. But I never had that like a relationship growing up. And what's crazy is I know some of his family, but all of his family hate each other. They do not meet for Christmas. They do not meet in any meaningful way. They have that like kind of like nuclear style family where they stay to their couples, they stay in their own houses, and they only come together if it's a big funeral, and even then begrudgingly, and they stare at each other. And it's like, you dive into the reasons why, and it's always some dumb, petty stuff. Like, oh, well, she said something mean about my wife, so my wife said something mean about her, so now we don't ever talk to each other ever again, and we're going to plan our lives around never seeing each other. And it's just like, man, that is a crazy view to hold, that something so small can get in the way of something so big. I've always... I feel like life is filled with moments like that, where we let the dumb stuff hold us down and get us down. A dumb example of this is I recently had some extreme PC issues. I can't state how big it was, and it really just got me in this moment where I was like, why am I the only one in the world who feels like I'm ever dealing with this? No one else goes through this much of disastrous emotional pain for what is effectively a simple issue. And when once I finally felt like I'd gotten to the horizon where I'd found the problem, so at least I could try some solutions, because it was like 16 steps to even diagnose what was wrong. But once I finally got there, I was so relieved that even when I went out to the store and I didn't find the part I was looking for, I was like, what I need now more than anything is just a nice double cheeseburger from McDonald's. It's like the food of my childhood. Now when I go to McDonald's, I like to get I try to get like a fun new burger. I tried to get something some like fancy chicken back when that was good. I tried to get something like really good at McDonald's. But when I went in, I was like, I want the cheapest, the worst, the burger that tastes like my childhood. And I kind of had this like reversion to that in some ways. Like I started staying up on the sofa, just playing some video games. I found one that I really liked called Domekeeper. I just started playing that until 1:30 a.m. And there was something really cathartic about just living, after having all this modern stress of being an adult, of just being able to live teenager me's best dreams. I think it is crazy that the world suddenly starts demanding from you around 16 to 21, depending on your life circumstances, sometimes earlier for some people, sadly. But the world just starts demanding from you like, hey, there is now a minimum amount of stuff you have to do to be able to exist. You could argue this always exists with school, that you always have to go to a school, and then at some point that just changes to being a job. But there's like the amount of work that goes into getting the job, keeping everything running. With my particular thing, it's like, oh yeah, that means that now there is no such concept as a sick day, which means you need to be prepared for that. There's no such concept as a day with friends, so you be prepared for all of that stuff. There's so much that went into to the point where I can be like, oh yeah, I want to live. Like 14-year-olds me stream and just play video games on the sofa, and until I run out of time, until I run out of desire and decide to go to bed. There was something so cathartic, something so delightful about that. And it's weird because I think if I did that every day, it's a lifestyle that would make me sad, but it's the lifestyle that I crave. And so just having a little bit of it felt real good. It's that thing. There are some things in life that are so enviable, that are so enjoyable, that we look up on so much, and that some people feel like they're being looked down on for being able to live. I think that this unable to understand where you are in life is a really big struggle that is like exploited by social media, where like, if you are someone who genuinely all you want in life is like earn enough money to get by and have like a small luxury here or there so that you can enjoy your video games, so that you can enjoy your hobbies or whatever else, that's seen as bad, because why aren't you having a child super young and going on a trillion holidays and going to the expensive restaurants or whatever else? Like, every single niche way to spend a bunch of money is thrown at you all the time. And I think it's one of the like negative comparison biases we have. I think you can always look at your life and think you're doing poorly. And I think, honestly, validly so. I look at my life and I'm like, yeah, there's still a bunch of social graces that I just don't get intuitively, and that I'm like struggling to learn, and that I don't know, like, being able to follow them perfectly is its own challenge in its own right. Like, there are some people who I can tell by their visible responses really love those social graces, and so making sure I nail it and making sure we don't get too controversial a topic going down, for example, it's hard. It's like to avoid having these real discussions about the real stuff, the things that really make you think about your life view and your life philosophy. I think those are discussions that you don't want to have. You want to instead just have the like, so how's it going? And it's like, yeah, it's pretty good. I am learning and doing some stuff. I think I had a big challenge in fixing a PC, and then I solved it, and then I spent a bunch of time playing a video game I liked on the sofa. It's like that's the way you would simplify it, but it misses the what feels like a reversion in your life. It misses what feels like like everything going wrong in a way that's disastrous. And it makes you realize that there are some things that just aren't easily shareable. The reason I think that it's good to talk deep or talk philosophy is because in life there are some big questions that you need to, I think that genuinely, like, we like to have answers. We like to have easy to understand and complete little bubbles for things. Instead of instead of that story being about how sometimes you need to live life like 15-year-old you's dream, even if living every day would make you sad. I think rather than having like a whole thought that ends up with like, oh, and that was bad, and oh, that was good, sometimes it's nice to have a thought that wraps around into like, yeah, there are days that are special only because they're limited. This is a day we can only have once a year. Even if we all decided that Christmas was, every single week, we would all make Christmas less important if it were that way. Christmas being once a year, and people who work normal jobs getting their time off for it, is what makes that so special. And so, is Christmas better? Here's a question: does Christmas work best being once a year, or should we have a summer equivalent? So Christmas is there to celebrate the winter solstice, this darkest day of the year, so you get your friends around. Should we have a summer solstice equivalent? Like, pick a day that is our summer Christmas? Or, if that would make Christmas less special, if we all gave gifts and did stuff then, why don't we have Christmas every 5 years? Like, genuinely, you know how we have a leap year? Why don't we make every leap year a Christmas year? Because that would make it so much more look forwardable too. There was a big festival that used to happen where I was from, and it was every other year. And genuinely, going to every other year was such a huge improvement in it. There is a real question about, if you enjoy something, how frequently should you do it? That's weird, because the more I moved to London because I just love the idea of being close to being able to do cool things that I'd look forward to doing. But if I try to do them every day, everything else in my life gets stressed, and they stop feeling as fun. I start remembering, sitting on the tube or whatever more than I remember doing the thing, or at least it feels like I do. Whereas if I have one big day a week where I'm like, let's go explore, let's just see some things I haven't seen before, it feels incredible. There's the right frequency for everything, and it's really hard to know what it is without trial and error. And the big question this poses is like, how do you know what the right amount of timing is for anything in your life? Because there are some big things where that's hard. Like, okay, you meet someone important in your life. Yeah, there's a new woman, new partner, new whatever person who is special. How often do you see them? You could see them every waking moment of every day, but that's a quick way to wear you down on something. I think that's important to say. I think it's as great as it is to hang out with friends, if you do it every single day after work, eventually it has to get chill. You have to start watching TV and having downtime together as well as uptime together. Everything in life has the right quantity. And what's weird about that is how that ties into everything, right? How literally everything in the world has this question about like what is the right balance. You know, to think about like something silly here is like the merch that I worked out. Like now what I do is instead of having like a merch store that's always running, it's like we make specific time limited projects, and there's benefits to that in terms of like it means we can do it all at the same time, take advantage of benefit of economies of scale. But also there's something better about the fact that it's this limited time that you're here for or that you're not, because it sucks when you're not, but when you're here for it, it feels awesome. You know, if we imagine life as being sometimes you're at the top of mountains and you don't know that there are people who are still struggling to make their way up there, I think that you should look at your life and realize what you're doing that for already. It's easy to use the social media and think, man, why am I not going out to a Michelin star restaurant every week? I saw these two girls eating at a free Michelin star place, and I was just like, man, they're living life good, you know. They are young, they care about each other. They're clearly eating a 3-star Michelin place and acting like this is a regular thing they do. They are living a life of which I am jealous in some way. But actually, like, you know, maybe it's not that way. Maybe they're friendly for the video because, you know, there's a on-camera persona for some people. Maybe, you know, like this is a place that they can afford because their parents aren't around, and so give them lots of guilt money. That's a common dad thing, right? You know, maybe I think that, you know, like rather than looking at other people and being jealous of what they have, especially with social media, I think that we should all be and rather than looking at ourselves and thinking about how you know, like how good we are in some ways, because the easy way to feel better than that is to be like, well, you know, despite how they are, they're using this for, you know, like it's easy to put people down and be like they are morally inferior. I think we should spend some genuine time with ourselves and think about ways that we have something that is to be envious of. I think that you can call that gratitude if you want to, but I think that rather than thinking about all the things in the world that we are envious of, we should think about what it is that we have that many people, even just some people, like you know, the fact that, like I was talking about the pub thing, like the fact that I have a pub that I can walk to. Multiple, actually. It's London. I could walk to probably 100 if we count, you know, like within like an hour or two or something like that. But like having a pub you can walk to, genuinely, not everyone has that anymore. That's a really important community thing. Or I think a lot about like having a family that is beyond just your two closest people. That's something even you know, and to be fair, I can say my dad doesn't have it, but based on the fact that he abandoned his family, maybe he should rightfully feel bad about that. But even then, it's like, yeah, even if I want to take out this, like, I think everyone who grows up without a father have these moments where they're like, oh yeah, everyone else is meant to have this quantity in their life that's just a struggle for me to get, like learning to shave myself. Real nightmare. It sucks. I genuinely had to ask a friend, like, why don't we just use scissors? Because this isn't an effective mechanism, and it cuts you frequently. Even if I'm using shaving cream, it just. The point is like all these things that suck. But it's like actually, even though it sucks for me, it also sucks that like this person couldn't keep their stuff together for long enough to, you know, they suffered through 2 years of having a child, and now they don't even get the fun bits of it. They don't get to have all those childhood memories. They get to feel like, you know, every time they see me, I'm sure it's like, yeah, look at the way you messed up there. I think having a family that extends beyond just a partner, or even having a partner to begin with, like 30-40% of the population don't have that. You should feel grateful for having a family at all, having anyone beyond just your mother. I think everyone knows their mother. It's a weird bond when you come out of someone's birth canal. Apparently, you care about them more, or if you push someone out of your birth canal, you care about them more. I mean, I guess you could make the point that, like, you know, every woman knows that they are the mother of their child, but you can't say that in reverse. Maybe that's the dark evolutionary logic on that. But anyway, to stay on point, I think we should be looking at the things that we have that are enviable. And we should be spending some time realizing that no matter where we are, we have those things. And that there are people who will try to put them down by reminding us that we don't have as much as other people have in some ways. But I think that, yeah, you should look at your life and you should think about that. And you should also, rather than having to feel morally superior, we should remind ourselves the ways that we have to grow. I think that rather than thinking about how much better other people's lives are, but how much better we are, we should remind ourselves how much better our lives are, but the flaws that we have. The fact that I get so frustrated repeatedly while dealing with something because I just want it to work. It's like, yeah, we all want lots of things, but just wanting the thing isn't enough to have it. You know, thinking about your, not moral failings, but the things you do wrong while thinking about what you have that is probably enviable. I think that's something that is important to do. And if you are spending this, if you're listening to this while you're on the sofa, or you're listening to this while in bed, having one of those chill Christmas days, I think it is worth considering, like, what is it that actually makes this, like something that is special? What is it that makes today something, like that is exciting? What is it that makes this time period exciting? And is this something that you would actually like more often in your life? Is this, that is to say, are you on board with the idea of Christmas being a 4 times a year season? Or do you like the idea of it being once every 4 years? Do you think that, because if so, you can't change Christmas. Your whole friends and family and anyone you care about isn't going to change their life for it. But you can change if you get some of these other things you like about it. This little time in bed. I think one of the craziest things is that if, again, outside of America, where maybe your holiday time is limited, if you have 4 weeks of time off a year, a lot of people go on one holiday and then like, yep, and then that's kind of it. I think it's good to have like the idea of like, here is a week of designated, I will travel during the day for a couple of days, I'll do day trips, but otherwise, the home is where I'm going to be staying. I'm going to spend some time reminding myself why I like the outside world. And I think having a little bit of that is good. That's one of my resolutions for this year. I could make it a thing about like, oh yeah, the like over time, the something money. I could make a point about how it's actually all about that. And probably that's a part of it. I could make a point about how, I love to be a traveler and how I'm such a good person for that. But actually, I think I am a bit flawed in that sometimes I just want to live life like a 12-year-old who has no responsibilities, eats fast food, and plays video games for as long as it takes until I don't want to play those video games anymore. Because I want to do things to excess. I love everything feels good when you do it to excess, man. And with that said, enjoy your Christmas because it's a time for precisely that. Thank you for watching. I hope you all enjoyed this little bit of a Christmas Day classic style video. I always do think that having a real talk on Christmas is important, and that's why we did this today. Thank you, and I'll check out the Creo cards. It's now Christmas, which means that there's your special time if you want to get one of the remaining few cards. Creocards.com/IBXToyCat. Get yourself one now. There are just a few days left to go. And look at that, little bit of promo. One of the things I should feel bad about is how much I want to tell people about these limited merch drops, because that's what makes them work, and it's one of the things that allows me to spend the time having the thoughts like these. But anyway, with that said, thank you. Check it out, and I'll see you next time. Bye.